Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll be talking about the Andean bear or the speckled bear. Please remember to like and subscribe. Alright, let's get right into it. Fact 1. The only native bear in South America. The Andean bear is native to South America, and in fact, it is the only bear in the South America region. This is incredibly interesting because South America is a rather large continent, but only one type of bear exists, and it's the Andean bear. Compared to other places in the world, there are so many variations of bears, grizzlies, black bears, etc. And yet, for the entire continent of South America, the Andean bear was the only one that's native, endemic to this region of the world. You could say that it is pretty unique that a huge continent was only able to produce one type of bear, the Andean bear. I think it's pretty incredible that the Andean bear got to have an entire continent to itself without having to share with other bear type species. Alright, let's get into the next fact. Fact 2. Mostly vegetarian. Another interesting thing about the Andean bear is that it is mostly vegetarian. It is omnivorous, similar to other bears around the world, but other bears around the world typically eat more meat than vegetables. Most bears, in fact all bears, do eat meat and vegetation at the same time. The Andean bear is so unique that only 5% of its diet is meat related. 95% of its diet are plant-based. You could absolutely call this a vegetarian bear if you were to ask me, because compared to other bears, grizzlies or brown bears, etc., they're more used to hunting and killing animals. Polar bears, for example, even kill other polar bears for survival. But the Andean bear seems to be completely opposite of these large bears that we know today, and can thrive on a purely vegetation diet. I think this also makes them a lot more survivable, because now they don't need to hunt and prey different types of animals. Vegetation grows all around, and it's much easier to source than hunt and kill an animal. I think this is part of the reason why the Andean bear is still surviving even today. Alright, let's get into the next fact. Fact 3. Closest to pandas. The Andean bear's closest relative is actually the giant pandas of China. It is so interesting because the Andean bear, although in the bear family, is not too related to brown bears, grizzly bears, polar bears, etc. It's actually closer to giant pandas. And giant pandas are also a vegetarian type of bear. They only mostly eat bamboo. And so I think this is what makes these bears very unique. And also, you don't need to fear them because they don't like to eat meat. And therefore, if they were to encounter you in the wild, they probably run away than rather try to attack and eat you. The same cannot be said with polar bears and brown bears and grizzly bears. For those bears, you probably need a shotgun to protect yourself because those bears will attack, maul, and possibly eat humans. Whereas the Andean bear and the giant panda, its close relative, will be happy to eat leaves and other vegetation that surrounds their habitat. To be honest, I think makes them pretty friendly in that regard. Alright, let's get into the next fact. Fact 4. Mostly in mountains. The Andean bear, as its name could possibly give you a clue, mostly lives in mountains, about 8,000 feet in elevation. They're called Andean obviously because the Andes Mountains that line up to the western side of South America is the primary mountain range that the Andean bear calls their habitat. And as I mentioned in the previous section, when you live in mountainous, remote, rugged locations, it might be difficult to hunt and kill other animals. And so I think the Andean bear adapted itself to thrive solely on food from plants and vegetations. It's a really good survival tactic because in mountain areas, sometimes other animals could be scarce. and it could be difficult to catch other animals as prey as well. And so the Andean bear, living only in the mountain regions, is able to survive simply with vegetation. The mountainous region of their habitat also helps them survive from human invasions, because habitat loss is much less frequent if their habitat is in rugged, rocky mountains. If their habitat was in normal plains and forests, they'll probably lose it very quickly due to development. Cool, let's get into the next and final fact: nocturnal animals. The Andean bear is a fairly nocturnal animal. It is active primarily at night. This is a very interesting fact of the Andean bear, because generally at night it is hard to see, and yet their primary source of food is vegetation and plants in their habitat. In the mountainous regions that they live, it could get difficult to see at night rather than during the day to identify good food or good plants to eat. But the Andean bear is primarily up at night, and I would imagine competing with other night animals for plant-based food diet. I think this also helps them avoid human interaction, because less humans are active at night, and especially in rugged, remote mountain regions. This is also, I think, another survival tactic that works to their advantage, because if you think about it, if they're active during the day, like many bears that you know about in Northern America, Europe, etc., they'll encounter humans in much greater frequency and likely get killed by the humans because they're afraid of these bears. But as you know from our previous sections, these bears are mostly vegetarian and probably would not want to eat human meat, and therefore would not likely to kill and maul a human. I think it makes them a very friendly bear indeed. Alright, that's it for my video today. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.